Welcome to the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Join your hosts, three-time WBFF world champions and WBFF royalty, Alicia Gowans and Stephanie Ayala McHugh, as we explore all things female health, training, competing, mindset, and living the fitness life every day.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 5 of the Queen Divas podcast. Steph and I are joining you today to discuss all things travel related after last week's episode, which saw me in the middle of, some dodgy basement with all these luxury cars all around me. We thought it prudent that we might bring in a whole segment on travel. But before we get into that, Steph, what was the highlight of your week, darling?
Oh, can I say Texas got hit with a freaking blizzard? No, it's like probably not a blizzard for a lot of people. I think a lot of people from the north are just kind of like laughing at people in the south in Texas, like, this is what we live on a daily basis. And it's like, guys, this state is not equipped for this. Like, this isn't something that they were not prepared for. We were not prepared for. So
for everyone in Australia, Steph, where we don't live this at all. we live different things. We can talk about cyclones. I'll discuss those at length when we get hit by one, which probably will come pretty soon because we're coming into that season part of the year. Yeah. We'll talk about that at length. But for everyone here listening, what is it that you're experiencing? I know because I've got a lot of clients who are in your area. So I've had a fair few clients sort of messaging me, water's gone, they're getting flooded, they've got no power, like all sorts of stuff. But for everyone that's not American based, what does it mean? What does it look like? What are you guys going through?
Well, it's practically the whole United States, except maybe like Southern California, Florida, South Carolina, Georgia. All of them are exempt out of this, but all of the U.S. right now has been attacked. And I mean, I don't know what made them mad. I don't know if Canada sent this or what happened, but this has really hit the whole U.S. by, honestly, like I said, the North was not unexpected. That's pretty normal for them. Being in Texas, you guys, for geographically showing y'all, we're on the south part of the United States, very close to Mexico. Okay, Mexico is our border, so we definitely got slammed. And cold weather is pretty normal here in Texas during the winter, but when we got snow, it's again going back to not normal. We got about 6 to 8 inches of snow. That's not normal for Texas. That is like hundreds of years, I think, since they've even tracked, the weather in general. Like, they have not hit any of these numbers. So this is history in the making. And what happened because of the infrastructure of all the homes, the pipes are all bursting. These freezing temperatures are causing, honestly, a lot more damage than you can imagine. The whole state is practically without power. Luckily, we are so blessed, so blessed, which leads me into what am I grateful for this week? We have power. We're so happy and blessed that we've been able to keep up with warmth, and obviously cook our food and not deal with really a cold house. But the water situation in our house kind of got a little crappy. No water, then the pipes bursted. So we did have a little flood into my gym, into my garage, and into my kitchen. So that was one of the, downfalls. But that's little, guys. Like, for you guys to understand what's going on, like, it's so sad. Some of these things that are happening here in Texas, because it's unexpected and no one has ever experienced this here, you have to think we are like a hot state. Like, this is, again, like, it's supposed to be hot. And even in the winter, yes, we get cold and we expect it, but it's nothing like snow. And because of these freezing temperatures, a lot of people are resorting to even, going into their car because they have no power. There's nothing that they can resort to for warmth, and they're dying. They're dying from carbon monoxide. They're like literally killing themselves, like, it's so sad. And like, again, the people with no power, with children, with newborn babies, guys, it's like below 8 degrees, below zero.
So what's the government doing there? You getting a bit of government support? Are they coming in and trying to help these families that are in these situations, less fortunate?
Yes, the state alone is trying to do their best with, even the shelters are getting these these pipes bursted to where they're having to run away from the shelters alone. So the whole state is under emergency. But with the weather getting cleared up here over the weekend, hopefully everything starts, of course, looking better next week. And, again, this is just going to be one of those tragedies that I think the state's now going to be more equipped when this happens in the future. So yeah, besides that, guys, we are good. We are good. Things are going to start getting a little better. But just keep us in our prayer, in your prayers. That's one of those things where everyone that is dealing with this right now is suffering. So we're lucky.
I just asked Christos in our little podcast chat while you were chatting, what was the name of this? Because he and I have been discussing the crazy change in weather all over, right? And what we mean by that is we've been experiencing the same. You know what it's like here in Brisbane. Oh my God, humid as hell. We've got that Asian vibe of humidity, right? It's fucking hot, sizzling hot. And like literally, our idea of winter is like, we might drop down to say 3 degrees overnight, but by 10 o'clock in the day, we're at 17 degrees, people. Like it's really beautiful all year round. I think our average temperature is 27 degrees, right? Yeah. So we've been witnessing though and experiencing, you can even see here, like this morning's a little cooler or was a little cooler initially. I've got a jumper on. Christos and I have been discussing that, every so many years or something, I don't know all the parameters on it, but basically every so many years, there's a period like this where globally everything is just a little bit cooler. There's a lot more, random sort of weather. Yep. And I was messaging him going, what is it? And it's that La Nina weather, where it's all about, what are they saying? They're saying that it's a periodic cooling of the ocean temperature that basically creates these patterns of like tropical rainfall, tropical storms, and we definitely have been experiencing. We've had lots of rain in the last, sort of 6 months, but also just much cooler temperate climates. Like I'm talking, we've been experiencing cooler. Like our summer, we didn't really feel. Normally our summer is like bitey hot. We didn't really feel like we had much of one this year. Like we just finished. We're coming into change of season. We're just finishing up our summer in the next week or so, and it doesn't feel like we really had too much one. We had a lot of cold snaps in Melbourne when we were there for the Australian Open the other week, and for the last couple of weeks. And honestly, we only had 2 days where it was warm. And normally the Australian Open's like 45-degree heat, like blazing sun. If you're not layered with sunscreen, you are literally peeling half your layers.
It was actually, Ali, a couple of years ago, exactly in February, I was visiting you. And this was the hottest fucking month. I couldn't stand it. I was
and here I am
so much. So I get you. I get what you're saying, and I do understand, because I think we kind of did expect here in Texas to have a colder winter, just because the summer was extended. Like we didn't really get a winter until like last month, to be honest. Like December was beautiful. Like it was in the 70s. Like that's not normal here either. So going back to what you said, I really do think it has a lot to do with the global warming as well as just the climate change. So anyway, so good. We're good in Texas. We're good in the deep South. Yeah.
Given what's going on with you, travel at the moment might be a little lower on the priority list, right? But what are you looking forward to in the coming week? What are you focused on? And obviously you're purely grateful for the fact you still have electricity, I would say. Yeah.
Oh, that is the biggest blessing right now. I'm just so grateful to have power. Like again, everyone in the state of Texas, like the majority of the state doesn't have power, which means they don't have heaters. They don't have, obviously ability to cook their food. So we do have that ability. We will be fixing obviously the pipes and getting the gym restored again. So that is going to be my goal. And also just trying to help as much as I can. I know my clients that are local as well as just in the same situation in other states, reprogramming, right? Like home exercises and, workouts. So it's going to be a little busy little upcoming week, I think, but other than that, it cannot be worse, honestly, in the case of where we're at. Like we have power, we have food, crossing my fingers that doesn't obviously go away in the next few days, but I think with the weather, we should be coming out of it. So how about you, Ali? How was your week?
Wow. Wow. Well, that's a bit of a hectic week. That was a challenge for you this week. And I, by all accounts, I don't necessarily think it's over yet. Right. So probably a little bit like you in the sense where I'm now now looking after clients of mine that are affected by some of this, and particularly directly in your area. But then, you know, like you said, there are other states are affected where I've got clients in the same boat. So helping manage that and just helping them, I think, mentally and emotionally, because for some of them, they legitimately are families that have lost power and stuff. So working through that. Yeah, working through that. But for us, for anyone who didn't watch, we were in lockdown. So we ended up being in Australia.
What was that about?
Oh, babe. Okay. So what I love about our government, actually, for all the people that want to sort of complain about it, is that it tends to grab something and nip it in the bud real quick. So because it's the UK strain that's come through with people coming back into the country, and then there's, you know, inevitable bloody spread through the quarantine hotels. So we had one of those situations, and it was through one of the ventilation things. So basically one of the ventilation things inside the hotel went, and there was a spread through the hotel, and it community transmitted a couple of instances. So they just jumped on it straight away because it happened before the weekend. As we know, the weekend is when everyone gets out, socializes, and the numbers go rampant. So they jumped on it and basically called a lockdown. And this is like right when we'd already been there for sort of 2 weeks, and we were thinking we're probably coming close to being able to travel home, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're in your room, you cannot leave. So like, holy shit, okay. So luckily for us, we were staying within a 5 kilometer radius, because you've got like a 5 kilometer distance you can travel for essentials and stuff. With so the family unit was split between 2 locations, but within the 5 kilometer radius, so we could still get across and literally be isolated and quarantined just with family between 2 spots, which was great. But it meant that it was 5 days of intense lockdown. It meant that I didn't train for 2 weeks. So we'll talk about, you know, travel and the impact of that and how to modify things, but then also, you know, how to just process it if you actually can't. Like, I legitimately just couldn't do anything. I got my step count up when I could and how I could, when I could move, but I had to just really let go of any kind of preconceived guilt or notion that I have to be in a gym and I have to be training. I don't feel bad for it at all.
So do you guys get notice? Do you guys get notice when you're going to get enough?
No, you don't always. It'll just be boom, lockdown. You're in your house.
So whenever you get locked down, like you get told the day of, or like the next
Sometimes
day?
it's the day of. In Brisbane, we got told the morning of to be locked down at 12 o'clock in the midday, not even at midnight. In Melbourne, they told us in the morning, and we were locked down by midnight. Had to be in your home.
So you guys are able to like contain it within 5 days? I'm so confused. Like that.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
It's so different for us.
So if everyone that's listening to this that's American, they're gonna be like, what the fuck happened?
You got locked up for 5 days. Like, you couldn't leave your house or your room. And tell that to an American. I mean, seriously.
The good thing was that it got contained. So within the 5 days, right, there was no more cases. But what we were able to do, which we're pretty lucky, so we live between 2 states, Queensland and ACT, which is our you know, governing state where all the parliament and everything is. And the Queensland border locked us out. We weren't allowed to go back there because of Victoria being in lockdown, but we could go to ACT. So we, as soon as it was 2 days deep in Melbourne, we went, you know what, we're better off in our own home environment, where at least we've got our office areas and stuff. Yeah. So we traveled from there to Canberra, and then we were straight into a quarantine situation in our own home in Canberra, which meant we can't leave the house at all, not even for a walk or anything, right? It's like being in your hotel.
Can you go outside?
Can't go outside. So we had federal police knocking on our door to check we were there, because there had been a lady that had been caught out. I know, right? We had a lady being caught out and about doing the wrong thing. So then they were knocking on everyone's door and checking were there. So good for us. We were doing all the right things, clearly.
What was she doing? Walking her dog? What was she doing? I mean, come on.
But what a trip, right? So the good thing was, and I'm grateful for it, that we, as a nation, are capable of pulling something in really quick, and for the health and I think for the community and citizen level of, you know, responsibility that we have, we're really quite good. So we did what we had to do, and within 5 days it was great. The lockdown was lifted, and then literally the very next day we were on a plane home to Queensland.
Yeah, of course, I see so many Australians. I actually have quite a big Australian following, you know, hence the you know, WBFF, as well as all my fellow friends and queens. I found it very interesting to see the lockdown for 5 days in particular. I even, you know, have a few clients out there, and I'm like, lockdown for 5 days? Like, what's 5 days going to do? I mean,
well, it's just a period where I guess the incubation and the contamination process is really quite high. So I guess too, it's going to be that period where if you're going to have had exposure, you'd be starting to show some symptoms, unless you're an asymptomatic person, which we know they exist.
Well, I'm glad you guys are off lockdown. That's great.
Our lockdown. So I'm like, woo, so I'm blessed for the fact that we were still able to travel home midway through to a home environment, which was great. there was still travel in this, right? So looping this into our travel conversation, and it's relevant again because in September of last year for Christos's birthday, I bought him a trip. We're going away to the Whitsundays to travel within Australia as our little relaxation trip. We leave on Wednesday, and we've got to now factor in travel with this as well. And one of the biggest things that has been a focal point for us in travel up until now has actually been obviously the whole COVID side of things. So, making sure that we're keeping clean, hygiene is, key of focus. We take our wipes, we wipe everything down in our little space, even though they say they've wiped it down, we still bloody wipe it down because we're a little bit pedantic. And then just honestly, just keeping a mask on our face the entire time we hit the airport through to when we leave the airport at the other end, right? Which is totally random. That's not what travel usually looks like for us whatsoever, but it is now. And the other thing that Christos and I have taken to, where normally on a domestic flight, we wouldn't care about consuming food. Like we might take our own food. If I'm in a prep process, we might consume certain food on the planes if we've already, given them our dietary requirements. But reality is we wouldn't care. Now we just don't eat at all. We just don't take our masks off. We just don't eat. We just don't even risk it, right? So travel kind of looks a little different. And I think that's worth noting too, because you don't want to get to your final destination and be sick, even if it's not COVID, it's just, a flu, because these environments, these cabins are so conducive to tracking any kind of bacteria and spreading.
Exactly. Right? So like my biggest fear, I think in general with traveling just right now is really just the flight alone. It's like not even the airport itself.
Yeah,
it's more of the flight. It's just the cabin. It's in the flight. So really it's about masking on and keeping it on. And I agree 100%, wiping everything down, hand sanitizing yourself, and, just taking those protocols of just hygiene. It's what we're supposed to do anyway.
I know you think so, right? But oh my God, so gross. So what my focus is for the coming week, I guess, when it comes to the travel side of things, is the fact that we've got to navigate a trip to Sydney for a day for a very special event, which I can't announce anything on yet, but I'm going to, and I'm so excited. It's a pretty big deal. So I'm going to tell everyone about it in the next week or two when we actually can release data about it. We'll talk about it. But we're going down. We'll be down there Monday, overnight Monday, and then back on Tuesday. So I've got to plan for that and plan for the fact that we'll be on a set, and I don't really know what the day or the timings or anything look like. So we've got to map our food out for that. But then also I need to plan that we get back and then head obviously off to this trip we're doing up in the Whitsundays. Now, interestingly enough, this trip itself, I have to prepare I have to organize catering and all the food, which I actually think is a really cool thing. Most people might listen to that and be like, oh, that doesn't sound like much of a holiday. But I'm actually loving that because it gives us more control, right?
Yes, exactly.
We're not in a prep process right now. I'm not cutting to a stage right now. And I'm actually deeply grateful that I'm not. That doesn't mean I'm pissing my fitness up a wall and not having a focus on it, because I still am. So we will still be looking at, what we're doing and how we're eating and the sort of food that we're actually consuming while we're away. So I guess it brings us to two things, and that is this. Travel, I think, now has a big focus on hygiene and health. And I think that's something that we probably shouldn't negate because it's such a huge component of travel now, even though it's not really historically something we would have focused on. But number two is it's got to be fit for your goals. So when you're looking at travel as a whole or something to navigate, always take it back to, because it's like anything when it comes to food, right? What are your specific goals? Like, where are you right now? Are you traveling for a corporate job where you're only going to be gone for a couple of days, but when you're not gone for this job trip, you aren't really in a restrictive phase anyway? Are you currently in a flexible process? Are you currently in an off season and we're in a surplus and you're lifting for performance? Are you currently in a process of, I am going to relax, like Christos and I are, and it's more of a holiday and it's for fun? Or are you traveling mid-prep, for prep, and to a stage? Because all of those areas are going to require very different considerations.
Yes, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with addressing how this trip is going to flow, how it's going to go, and what's expected out of you. Whether if it's more activity that you actually have to do, actually getting workouts in, or a relaxation, maybe having a deload week, right? And not even worrying about the gyms, maybe just doing some step counting, but that's about it, So 100% agree. I think one of the best things to really focus on is making sure your food is the number one priority, right? Like, and that's leading into your catering thing. So is this like obviously for your upcoming trip, like you're able to select?
So to give everyone a perspective on this, right? The island we're going to in the Whitsundays only has several villas on it. So it's quite a small, self-contained, private sort of island, right? But because of COVID, they've shut down their restaurant for now temporarily. But what they've done is they've got these amazing, it's like all barbecue and open and grilling areas and everything else right by the pool, right on the water. So for the people that are staying there, they've got this opportunity where you've got these different companies on the mainland that you can purchase catering processes from, where you can either pick an entire, package for the duration you're there with all these different food options. You can prepare your whole thing. You can purchase pre-prepared packages where it's just pulling together and finalizing a few things, but not necessarily everything from scratch. Or you can take all your own stuff from the mainland, completely up to you. So we're at the moment going through the process of organizing what we want, when we want. So one of them is a little bit more a la carte, and we want to enjoy ourselves. So we'll have a couple of meals from that. And then the other one is more, you'd probably think it'd be more of a robust, health orientated structure where you can prepare your own meals and create what you'd like, right? So we're going to probably go 70% from that, 30% from the a la carte side. So you can see I've still got to focus on meeting with a degree here, an 80-20 principle. While I'm away, we're still enjoying ourselves and we're still having that luxurious component, but it's not every day and it's not all day and it's not every meal.
Right. So with your actual catering side, it's very similar to meal prep service, right? It sounds like what they're doing for you is a meal prep service that you can most likely order from your local provider if you have a good, chef in your city. A lot of meal prep companies are upcoming and growing more and more, with everyone becoming more health conscious and also becoming more entrepreneurs, right? I think as you gain more on your plate, you don't have the time to cook and to be meal prepping. So meal prepping is definitely one of those things that takes a lot of effort. So maybe the dishes and leaving all that extra stuff for an extra external source would be great for you. But in your case, Ali, so obviously you said 70% is going to be some of the clean side, and then the other you're going to be able to splurge. But this is solely a relaxation trip.
It is. Yes. Okay. And this is why I'm making a point of suggesting to everyone that, hey, look, we're not going balls to the wall, sacking off all health for a whole, sort of week just because it's a holiday. We're just taking what we're doing and creating elements of fun and some flexibility inside of what is our normal routine anyway. But I mean, that's largely because this is just, we'll talk about this before, truly my lifestyle. So anything more than that, I would feel like crap. And it's not even what I would enjoy or want to do, right? So that's the way that we're approaching it. Now, I can also do that because like I said, I'm matching my energy needs right now. I'm living in a state of energy balance. I'm not in a massive crazy surplus because I'm only just starting to scale my training and my rehab back up, progressively loading over time towards the powerlifting stage. But I'm not in a deficit. I'm not cutting. I'm not worried about having lost my abs a little bit. I'm in this really lovely stage of loving my life, living my day to day, but not necessarily at the same time eating like shit just because I can. I don't believe in doing that. I really believe in, quality over quantity and really making sure that I'm fueling myself for health, right? So I'm wellness orientated. It's just the lifestyle I lead. So we will do the 70-30. And to us, that's fun and that is relaxation. To us, that's enough. We don't need to go any more than that. And our days are already sort of filled. And I've got, a part of it is relaxation and in spas, but then we're doing snorkeling. We're going to this, this really exclusive white beach, island in another area for a beautiful lunch. We're doing stuff. We're active the whole time, right? So which is again just very typical of us. We're nature orientated and we're active even on our days off, right? So I guess the things to think about in this is, and I come from a corporate background. I used to I've lived out of airports my whole life. For the people that have watched this and know that I travel abroad maybe 4 to 5 months of the year, really in total, that is still less than I did when I was in corporate. It's crazy, but I was legitimately on planes and out of, suitcases my whole life. So in corporate, it's a little harder, I found. And I think anyone listening to this that comes from a corporate background or is in corporate or has a job that is a 9 to 5 or even longer hours that requires them to be on the road as a sales rep or on the road in general or in and out of airports, you got to know where I'm coming from. You're going to feel me, people. Exactly. Hotel rooms have shit house fridges and they're really fucking small and you can't cook crap. And then also in and out of airports, airport food is horrendous. Airplane food, even worse. And need we say, you're usually running from meeting to meeting in and out of places. Like, it's crazy hectic. And I found in my corporate life, I was still the same. I still led the same sort of lifestyle. In fact, I was probably maybe even a little bit more anal back then about really controlling what I could control. And I would always, and Steph, you hit it the nail on the head, and this is back before it was even fucking sexy. I always had food prep companies in any state I was traveling to. I'd plan ahead, I'd call ahead, I'd order ahead, I'd have them delivered to my hotel, I'd have them in my room, I'd request a microwave wherever I was staying, I'd have a little 6-pack bag, and this is back when 6-pack bags weren't that little, they were pretty clunky, and everyone would look at you like there was something wrong with you because they, again, weren't sexy and weren't common back then. I'd carry it everywhere with me. And I would take my food for the first part of the trip and I'd literally then just be catered food on the way home, but I'd always prep for it. So I would probably urge everyone to look at, okay, where am I at with my goals in fitness? Do I have the element to be flexible or not? Am I going to be going somewhere where I'm at a conference all day, or do I have a presentation to give and then a boozy afternoon lunch? Because that actually happens too. So how am I going to navigate around that, allow for that, track around it, whatever it is that you're going to do, just planning ahead. Planning is what prevents failure. I truly believe that. Be organized as hell. I was a spreadsheet queen. Everything was spreadsheeted down to where I was getting my food and when, what delivery service. So, I think that's probably the best way to tackle it if you're traveling for work. Did you travel for work when you were doing the gym stuff, Steph? I'm sure you did because you were a part of a big chain, weren't you?
Yeah, you know what? I was actually stationed. I think for anybody that has to go to a facility and be there all day will feel me on this one. It's like you work out and that's like your same home, like where you work out of, like that's just your second home. Like you're there all day, every day, and you practically should bring your bed. Like you should bring some blankets and just sleep there overnight because you don't leave, So having your food with you is the most crucial thing because you can't leave. You're not going anywhere. So that either means you're getting something called in to get delivered to you, which is normally never a good option. It's usually fast food, right? So you have to have your stuff prepared. And going into like your long meetings thing, Ali, I think that really can, be related to across the board to a lot of people that are just busy, not just, in the corporate world, but in general, like if you have a job that demands you or, whatever you're doing is long periods of time, whether that's 2, 3, 4 hours, what are you doing with your meal frequency, right? Or your schedule in general? Are you doing intermittent fasting to prevent, obviously that big window in the morning? Are you not doing IF and you're starting to do every 3 hours a meal? Or are you doing just 3 big meals a day? Knowing how many times a day you're eating already consistently and what's going to deter you from obviously your goal is also something to look at. So having your food with you, whether if that is through a meal prep service or do what I do immediately when you pick your location over, destination of vacation, or just work, just with the competitions, with not competing ourselves, but going for the competitors, for the team, same thing. Finding a hub immediately when you get there or searching obviously beforehand, the closest grocery store. So you can immediately get to that grocery store. And although you're staying in a hotel, being very resourceful, if you're not doing like an international flight and you're doing something domestic, you can travel with some pretty easy electronic, little griddles. I mean it. Like you could easily cook some stuff up in your hotel. You put it into, obviously just with electricity. You don't need a stove per se, but you can cook some eggs. Trust me, you can get some oats. You can even do a little chicken on the side. I'm being serious. Minute rices. I mean, you can make it work, especially if you're, doing some traveling, just like I said, domestically. It starts getting a little more complicated when you're going international. I think that's where I've came into some issues of getting my food confiscated is because they don't want poultry and other different types of agriculture into different countries. So besides that, anyone that is planning to travel internationally, even though right now it's a very very touchy or iffy subject, right? Like it's more about you having only enough until you get off the flight. Okay. So that's my tip to anybody that is traveling, internationally or just from, country to country. So domestically, you shouldn't have an issue. I think that's across. Is that the same in Australia? Are you guys allowed to
we can travel with
food?
It's not a problem. Obviously though, with current conditions, I would 100% not be taking it out inside the cabin and consuming it there. I'd literally just be, it's in the thing above, right? But I think even here, our domestic travel is, whilst it's going, it's definitely not at the full capacity it would normally be. And it's dictated again to whether or not, borders are shut from one place to another, right?
Yeah.
Really hoping that as we're seeing this vaccine rolled out over the next 2 months here in Australia, because it's only just landed here, we're like one of the last countries to get it, because I think they just think, oh, fuck it, you're doing fine, you don't need it. I really do. I think they're like, you really don't need it, people. You're a big,
you're containing it in 5 days.
Oceans.
I mean, you guys are.
So we're only just starting to get it. And I think, look, as this progresses and the cases across the planet are starting to, sort of subside and be more controlled, I think we will start seeing more traction and more opening up and a lot more even fluidity between our own states. But what I am noticing is a lot more people taking to the road in their camper vans, taking to the road in their cars, like doing the local based travel, which I love. And that even lends you to even more scope to be able to take stuff with you. I mean, for crying out loud, we even took our sous vide to Melbourne because Christos couldn't possibly do a few weeks in Melbourne without having his steak sous vide.
I don't blame him.
He put that in a suitcase, in a carry-on suitcase, and we carried that over. Like, so funny. And then he left it there. Cheeky buggers. Now we're ordering another one because we can't possibly be without one. So good. So you are right. You can carry stuff and you can take stuff on the planes for sure. But I think,
making sure you do have food with you, just so like if over there domestically, make sure you plan ahead. And like for me, my go-to and for meal prep, if I have to prep my food, is going to be the crock pot. I think a crock pot's just like a life savior. You can just throw in, your protein source, whether if that's some beef or some chicken, some turkey, and you already have it made. You just let it all cook overnight or, throughout the day. And there you go. You just separate it and put it inside some, containers and, off you go into your flight. And you're pretty stacked with some protein sources. Because I do find that cooking it, I think, is the hardest. If you're not able to have a house or, Airbnb that has a kitchen. If you have a hotel, traveling with a cooler, like in a 6-pack bag, Fitmark bag, all of those are, essential for you to cool and have, everything already refrigerated. But if you have to think that's only going to last you for so long, right? Because if your freezers, your little freezer bags start, melting, that's only going to last to, however long they last. So having a little fridge or calling ahead of time to your hotel and asking, it's okay to ask and request a refrigerator or even a microwave. Some hotels, are definitely accommodating as long as you tell them ahead of time or request it. I know maybe some run out in time. I know it happened to me in London. Everybody had requested a microwave right before myself. So when I requested it, I didn't get one. I and this is how strict I was. And of course we walked out, with a world championship title, or Ali and I both did. I went to the store and we bought a microwave. Fuck it. We bought a microwave. And and that was because I didn't want to eat cold food. That was honestly me being prissy.
We've actually done that so many times on so many trips, on so many occasions, like actually physically bought microwaves or little mini air fryers, because I love air fryers. I think they're just sensational. So I guess
same.
Exactly right. And I guess another thing that I used to find handy was always looking for service departments or premises that allowed you to actually have a small city cooking facility. That was always a really great way to go. And I love the fact that for some of the shows, they actually have their host hotels in hotels that have the opportunity to book rooms that are fully self-contained, self-sufficient. So that's fantastic. So if we now take this conversation from travel from work through to a more strict, rigid structure where we're traveling during a prep, maybe to support some of our teams in different shows prior to stepping on stage, or it's for our own show, it looks very, very different, people. Down to, I'm talking like I get on a plane and I am head to toe compression to the point where I feel like I'm going to pop my own head off. I'm like neck, 2 feet, and then big socks, and everything is controlled to I've got timed components of when I'm consuming my water to when I'm eating whatever I'm eating. There's certain legs because I'm international. I come from so far away from everywhere else in the world that I literally will travel for a whole day to get somewhere. So I'll have whole portions or whole legs of certain flights where I'm fasting completely. So it is literally to the wire, to the time frame planned. And then we will pick locations to stay in our peak week or our timeframes leading into when we need to be into a host hotel in a environment where we can either cook, prepare food and store food, or we are right beside or within walking distance to, you know, habit stack here and do cardio plus get my food to a Whole Foods. Everything in America centers around Whole Foods when I'm in a prep, right? So 100% there are, you know, ways to structure and be organized for this, but there's also too, you know, we talk about this before, really great, reputable and previously utilized by, you know, pros catering services that will provide, you know, prep friendly meals. Personally for me though, when I'm coming into that final stage and it's literally to the wire and we're taking out titles, I never leave it to a catering company. Never.
Don't leave it in somebody else's hand.
I do it all too much. It's all me. Well, effectively,
just don't do it. Just learn from me. I got
and I was just gonna say, and I'm gonna end this and caveat with, I know I helped Steph on a few occasions because tell everyone about your experience. It was like Scheisenhausen.
Oh, it's not just one time, guys. I should have learned my first time. Like dealing with an external source, it's great. Again, like Ali said, once you get to peak week, I mean, it's a different rodeo. You do need to be much more precise for you to come in and obviously just peak correctly. You want to make sure you're actually eating your meals on time, as well as drinking your fluids on time. And this is one thing that I did in Vegas, actually, you know, it happened in London as well. I actually used meal prep serving in London. But you know, there was just some complications to where the order was wrong. It was just a couple days late, you know, obviously a couple days of peak week is a very
This matters. Like you can't have your measurements out. You can't be missing something. You can't have extra anything and you can't be late.
Can't be late. That's the key here. Wow. So that was lesson one. You know what? We just made it work. We, you know, found some food. That was London. Going into Vegas, peak week there. The delivery service, it didn't make it. They had a snowstorm. Going back to snow. All the, you know, trucks were full of food, you know, for the service. Nothing made it. So here goes Vegas again. Same rodeo. You're like, what the hell? How did this happen again? No food on peak week. You know, but luckily we had amazing, you know, like there was a store. We were able to, you know, make it work. You know, we got team members to give us like their extra, you know, food. So no, it was teamwork made the dream work for that show. And here comes Bahamas. Oh my god!
And I'm bringing you all of my potato wedges.
I fucking run out of potatoes. Here I go. I know Ali, you know, she has a home there with Christos, and I'm like, Ali, I need your fucking help, man. I need to bake some fucking potatoes. Like, I need some fucking sweet potatoes, and I need them now. And she's just like, I got you. And no, so anyways, we shared potatoes. We've shared our chocolates.
We're LA. We're backstage in LA, and we're sharing rice and jam and lollies. I mean, you know, when you think about it, we've shared food every single show since 2017. High five, sister.
Since hey, it's so true. Since LA, since our first pro show together, we've actually always shared back.
We've shared food every single time. Yeah. So the moral of the story to this too is the fact that, you know, if you are prepping to travel and you're traveling, you know, where you've got an environment where you know you're going to be traveling, there's going to be teammates around. Don't be afraid to put your hand up and ask for help, and also you know, maybe collaborate with your team and be like, hey guys, you know, I'll bring this, you bring that. Again, if it's a peak week situation, I always think take control, put your own air mask on before you put on someone else's, because you need to be right on time, right? But then be willing to help others, right? Don't be
absolutely. Always take extra too. I think that's one of the things, like that's how we even started talking. I think we were eating a little spike of sugar, and I'm like, here, try these Reese's. You've never tried Reese's before?
No, I haven't. You were my best.
And she's just like, never. And I'm like, you're missing out on life, girl. You've never had Reese's.
Everyone can clearly understand how we became best friends. It really was all about the Reese's.
It was actually Reese's Pieces. particularly, but anyways, no, I agree about, lending, the outsource of peak week or, closer to show week into another hand besides yourself. So,
and
cook
also
your food. Yeah.
don't wing it, people. Don't like wait till you land somewhere to then start trying to find something, because especially if you've got off a plane for a while and then there's a gap and you should have already been eating at your time block and you've got to wait then for something. No, just don't risk it. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, plan ahead, be methodical with your approach, be super diligent, triple check everything. Become a spreadsheet freaking queen if you're not already, and make sure you don't leave anything to chance, right? That's a huge, huge
Same goes to the gym. I think this is very important, like you said, like knowing ahead of time where the grocery store is, the proximity from your hotel, from where you're staying, your Airbnb, to this grocery store, to also the gym, or if the place you're staying at has enough of the equipment for you to be able to train and utilize and maybe substitute a few things. Don't just get there and be like, fuck, I don't have a barbell. Like, okay, like that's what my whole program consists of. It's okay if they at least have dumbbells. You're at least kind of ahead of time start replanning, rescheduling some of that session over to dumbbell work. So it's still same thing, but it's more about pre-planning and knowing ahead of time.
Correct.
Am I in a place that has a gym, right? Is this hotel equipped, or does it just have cardio? Because some gyms literally only have a pair of dumbbells and cardio machine, and that's it. So if that's the case, you want to look for a close gym, or if maybe that close gym has even what you're looking for, right? So maybe looking around and seeing the best gym for your session. And also modifying, guys, it's okay. Like I have some clients freak out. I can't do this leg press. I don't have this leg press machine. And it's like, guys, we're going to be able to work that leg press so many other times. Like, I think for me, it's fun traveling and actually finding new equipment and maybe trying a different variation from this new line that I've never tried before. A Cybex from Alive Fitness, to obviously like a different line is going to be different, right? Like, so
I actually miss that. Like, the biggest thing I miss, I think, has been the fact that I have not had exposure to many different facilities in the last 12 months. Because you and I have talked about this before, Steph. It's the best part about what we do. It's getting to have fucking fun in
variety.
Like, we run into a gym. We're like a chubby kid in a bakery, right? It's like, get me on that donut. I mean, like,
chubby kid in a bakery. It's a kid in a playground.
It's like that, right? It seriously is. We're like, we get so excited. I'm sure they look at us and they're like, yeah, I'm sure that's not protein powder inside that shaker, ladies. What are these ladies drinking? It's a lot of fun wrapped up in this. But we really do. We get excited about it. I mean, and it's another indication that we're actually living passion, right? And that we're doing what we love. But it's true. I love trialing new equipment, new environments. You just get to play. It's playful for me. So I totally agree with you. So, for everyone else, the other take-home message out of that is creating a flexible mindset. So creating a mindset that is not rigid in the fact that it must look like X, Y, Z, and instead creating this level. And we talked about this in the coaching episode, a level of curiosity to everything that you're doing. Like, create this level of, right, well, I don't have that, but how can I go make this work in a different 100 different ways? Getting, I think, innovative in everything that you do, because it's going to expand your experience, but it'll also expand your knowledge and your, I think, resilience. So flexibility with traveling is super important. I always say to my team, be ready for everything to fall apart.
Amen, sis.
Like a backstage at a show, everything will go fucking south at some point. You can bet your house on it. So get really, really, really good at expecting the worst. And if it doesn't happen, punch the sky and be like, fuck yeah, rock that one. Because it's a bonus if something doesn't go wrong. It is not the expectation that nothing will go wrong. So take that home and apply it to travel too. Flights will get canceled. Shit will get delayed. Baggage will get lost. So my key points are: always have your food on you in the cabin upstairs. Don't check it in, because shit will get lost. Always be ready for something to be delivered to your hotel. Yes, but try to have something already on you that's transportable that you can have, even if it's just a protein shake on water, just in case it's late. Be ready, prepare for failure, because, and I'm not talking your failure, I'm talking failure of the uncontrollable variables outside of your scope, right? So be prepared for that. That's my next take home. And then my last thing that I want to end on today is this: I don't care who you are, what you're doing, what level you're at, and how serious you take your life and maybe your journey in fitness. When it's time to unwind with your significant other and have fun, or your family on a family vacation, can you stop being so obsessed with scales and food and, numbers, and just live
Tracking.
in the goddamn moment? Because those moments are going to pass and you're going to regret later that you did not take it and jump it and leverage it. And I'm not saying that's a free pass to go be and eat all you want asshole at a buffet every single meal the whole trip. I just mean be present in the moment with your people. And don't be obsessing here about the fact that you don't have access to your gym and you might be having 4 days. Like in my case, Christ, in Melbourne, I think I trained 4 times out of 3 weeks. I'm fine, people. I didn't lose my mind. And in fact, my body's thanking me. I'm considering it just an extended freaking deload. I'm hitting my shit hard now because I'm able to, but it's been okay, people. So I think this is really important.
Touching on that, Ali, I think that you hit it really, really big there as far as like taking a deload and beyond what your normalized, deload is. Like deload normally is for someone to say a week, right? But like, what is a normal deload? Like everyone's deload is gonna be different. Like some people need 2 weeks, some people need 3, some people need 4. Like heck, some people need a few months, and I mean that like not to where they're just not training completely. They're still getting back in there. It's just that it's not their priority. And look, there's so many different times, like we talked about, traveling for relaxation and some flexibility and, making sure that you do have that time unwinded with your significant other, your family members. But then there is a time that you're going to be traveling in a much more strict approach that I find much more difficult. I think that this is sometimes some people think it's lightly taken and it's going to be easy and I'm going to be able to stay on track and I'm not going to get hungry. It's like, guys, you know how hangry you get when you miss a meal even just by 15 minutes, like, and you expect yourself to like not fall apart and lose your shit on like in a different city out of your your habitat. Like it's overwhelming. I think that that's what people don't realize when traveling and trying to stay strict and on track. There's so many different ways that you can approach it, not just from a flexibility standpoint. It's more about understanding that it's okay to fuck up. All right, it's okay
100%. It's so funny. 100%. You're talking about that, and as you're talking about that, I'm picturing this one episode of me in the Bahamas house. And this must have been, I think we were staying there before we went across for the London show. So we had been doing our peak in the Bahamas, then we went across the London show. Oh my God, I just remember this moment. When like every single gram counts, right? When you're in a deficit and you're that hungry and you're tired and you're exhausted and your brain sort of has a little bit of a fart moment and you kind of just can't string a sentence together. It happens at least 1 or 2 days in coming into the final weeks for sure. And I had that moment and I was at the end of the day and I had been complaining to Christos that I had to cut my food down. He put this food in front of me and I'm looking at it like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck? That's one fucking mouthful. Whatever. That's not even going to feed my big toe. And it was literally like 100 grams of rice or something, right? But it was so funny. I remember having this big tantrum, and then I picked it up and then I dropped it all over the floor. I just started crying. I looked at him. I'm like, he's just looked at me, and normally he would berate me, would do something, but I remember in this moment he just looked at me and just went, oh no, and just started hugging me. He's like, what the fuck did you
broke Alicia. I fucking broke her.
This is also because he knows I'm not an emotional person, so he's probably seen me cry maybe 3 times in 7 years, right? So he was probably just like, what do I even do with this? She's broken.
That's normal. Okay, so anyone that freaks out during the last few weeks and then on peak week is losing their marbles, can't fucking remember where their keys are. They're probably in your hand. Yeah, you never dropped them off. Okay, come on. Like it's normal. So that is one of the most crucial times. And my biggest recommendation, and this goes across the board to anyone, and this is what I try to do for myself, if of course possible, is stay home. Try to stay in your habitat as much as possible, like in your normal, place of routine, and avoid travel. If you really want to be successful going into your peak week and going into your show, my biggest suggestion, like Ali, she can go and travel and go on a peak week. I'm opposite. Okay. I'm completely opposite. If I'm not in my bed, in my house with my dogs, in my training, I am not normal. Like this is not good for me. So, I know for me, it's a different place I need to be, and I cannot travel because I'm gonna get out of line,
out of your rhythm. Look, and we touched on that earlier. I think the reason that I'm probably like that is because my whole adult life I've traveled like that, right? So it's the norm for me. I don't feel I just don't feel it as such. But having said that, though, I'll agree with you. If I'm in a place that's got like a shit bed and a shit mattress and a shit pillow, I'm not a happy camper. But having said that, most of the time we try to coordinate it in places that are known to us or their family.
Oh,
That
of
it's
course. You
our
have.
family home, like we have in the
Mhm.
Bahamas, right?
Yours are always
But
fun. Yours look very tropical, and I'm like, I wish I could do that, but I know myself. I'm like, I'm gonna be wanting a margarita in my hand versus a glass of wine versus actually staying regimented and actually wanting to get to show day, and then from there on wanting to relax. So hey, there's so many ways that you can approach traveling. Just know yourself. Number one about you, knowing yourself. Are you the type of person immediately starts falling off track just because there is a flight or other things? You got to work on a routine with your with your flights as well as like your vacation before you ever even consider traveling in a prep. Okay.
And I think that you just hit the nail on the head though. And the biggest take home that I got out of that last part was know yourself, know your triggers. So know ahead. If you have historically had these situations happen, plan for them. Don't just let them happen again because they just happen, because they don't just happen. It's a cycle, it's a pattern. So know your triggers, plan around you, understand how to hack your own crap, right? So if you know you're someone that can't go to a certain event or a certain family function and not get pulled into something, prepare for that. Be ready for that. Tell your partner, if this happens, pull me away, take your food, suggest that they put on XYZ and that there's that on the grill. So it's not just all shit food, like whatever it is. Or better yet, and I've said this to many of my clients, choose the venue. If you're going somewhere and you're going to be traveling and you're going to be catching up with another family or friends or whatever it is, choose the venue. Know ahead of time where you're going, what the menu is, plan for it, be ready for it. Like there's so many things you can do here. But our whole purpose of this was travel safe, know where you're going, what your goal is in fitness and that stage of the year and your life and your sport or whatever else, and then tailor everything to that. Remember, training and fitness has always got to be linked to your goal and your purpose. You just don't want to be directionless. Unless, of course, you're going to have fun and a complete relaxation and you're tapping out for 4 days. Don't bother. You don't have to worry about training for those 4 days. Take it as time off, So our whole thing, I think, is know your goal still and be prepared for that. Make that the whole purpose of how you plan for your specific travel. And every single travel piece of travel that you do across the year will be different because you'll be at different stages, different needs, different requirements, and different objectives, really. So
you'll learn so much every single time. You'll learn about yourself, about, like Ali said, your triggers, if you do have any when traveling or going into certain settings. So it's just about making sure you make the most out of wherever you're going. Make sure you take the moment to intake the outside, the nature, and really living in the moment and not allowing yourself to overstress on numbers. Stay on point, but, also make sure you're there for yourself and, you engage with what's going on. And I think that's also super important, not just being so obsessive.
Very important, very, very important. I definitely think that's something that you get better and better with the longer that you're in this sport too, is being able to let go of this insane level of obsessive hyper focus and also unnecessary level of control in periods where the volume should be down, not dialed right up. You don't have to live in a room that has a fire alarm going off all year round, right? Turn the volume down when you need to and enjoy the time you've got where you don't have to be hyper vigilant. So on that note, for everyone, I'm praying 2020 lets us have a lot more travel than 2020 did, and that we all have this as a problem. And I wouldn't call it a problem, I call it a blessing, that we all have to factor in and consider. So hopefully our conversations today in February will mean something at some point in 2021 that you might have to reflect back on to work out how to make your travel effective and not derailed. Thanks again, Steph. Love chatting with you.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you guys next week. Or
see you next week. Awesome. Thanks, darling.
Awesome, hon. All right.
And then we'll try and come up with a guest for next week. We'll have to think about that.
So with the guest, so I was thinking, since Holly wasn't available to like March anyway, did we just want to like promote one once a month instead of doing, because I feel like they overlap so much doing like 2 a month.
Yeah, I don't mind. Honestly, I don't mind. We could even look at like 1 a month for now and then be looking at 2 a month later. Yeah. Because we'll start looking at pre-booking people for like a couple of months in advance type thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll start putting our heads together about how we want the flow of it to happen and what time of the year it is and what's most relevant. But I really think it would be a good place to have Alison come on, and with Alison obviously always comes Paul. But from the point of view of boss lady, boss babe, great success story in business, I think she's amazing. And I also think it'll filter into talking about the season ahead and the direction and the change and platforms that they're getting a lot better at. I think that's pretty cool, and she can be promoting some of the sort of lives that they're doing and things.
Yeah, I think it'll be great to have them just in general, just because they're
correct.
Part of our titles, and it's just going to bring even more of the BFF audience.
Exactly. So I think we'll probably reach out. I'll get Christos to try and tee them up. But the only issue when we get Paul and Alison on it, it's like it's always on their schedule, so we don't. We're gonna have to go with whatever time they give us.
It's not letting me stop recording. Let me just.
He's gonna end the meeting. So I'll chat to you and think. Oh, set up the WhatsApp chat.
Yeah, in the WhatsApp. That's cool with Chris.
The WhatsApp chat. Set it up.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Queen Divas Pod, on Twitter at Queen Divas 4, and follow our hosts on Instagram, Alicia at Alicia Gowans _WBFF Pro, and Steph at Stephanie Ayala 7. See you all next week.